zero, one of the most thoroughly documented cases of childhood lead poisoning in the United States. Let me introduce you to my firstborn, my son Julian. As a redhead with blue eyes, Julian is one of 13 million people worldwide who share this rarest of genetic combinations. Over the millennium, redheads have been buried alive, burned at the stake, and ostracized. To this day, bullies frequently target redheads. And thanks to South Park, November 20th has been recognized as Ginger Day since 2008. 2008 also coincided with Julian's middle school years. And let's just say, students in that age group would be exceptionally cool. Stereotypes exist everywhere, and yet, lead is colorblind. Over these past few days, there were presentations discussing screening rates, and every single one of those statistics represents a child and a family. From his initial diagnosis until his high school graduation spans 17 years and 2 months. This is Julian's story. On July 28th, 1995, I purchased a 1,984 square foot, 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom house on 2/3 of an acre in the village of Somerset, located in rural Perry County, Ohio, to become the 20th owner of 204 West Main Street. In 1832, when the soft orangey brick house was first constructed, 24 states were part of the Union under 7th U.S. President Andrew Jackson. A carriage stone was a 3-room house built next to Jacob Miller's pattern, one of the first structures in Middleton, literally Somerset. The handwritten property deeds traveled by Conestoga wagon to the county seat right before the Civil War started. By 1887, the fifth owner built the first addition indicated to the right of the line, which doubled the size of the property. The Residential Lead-Based Hazard Reduction Act of 1992, known as Title 10, would not begin enforcement until December 6, 1996, 198 days after I purchased it. Ironically, the EPA pamphlets existed if a real estate agent who was involved in 4 of the 5 property sales between 1975 and 1995 neither mentioned this pending legislation nor provided these books at the time of sale. She makes disposed of the properties around 100 years old. On this familiar day weekend, 1995, when we moved. As you can clearly see, the property requires sanding, stripping, and painting. And that the Pepto-Bismol ink on the original river. Throughout the foyer, a moldy gray sherbet paint top coat peeled off to expose the floor of layers so thick that the wood grooves were made sweet. And there's a layer of wallpaper. I watched Christopher Lowell's home improvement shows and subscribed to Martha Stewart Living magazine. I just need to remove that now. You know it works. Saturday Night Fever debuted 3 months and 13 days after the Consumer Product Safety Commission issued the final ban on lead-containing paint. 2/3 of Ohio's housing stock was built before John Travolta strutted from Brooklyn, New York, to the weekend. Even the super simple questionnaire would have alerted me before the purchase, since I intended to remove paint in and on a property I would later learn was built in 1832. I answered yes to 2 risk factors when I moved in. 1 month later, as a pregnant woman, my risk factors increased to 3. The second failure, I never saw this pamphlet until February of 1998. I had proper behavior throughout, yet no one assessed Julian's or my environmental risks. As early as 1930, 1937, FDA investigations confirmed that blood across the placenta in lab animals. Yet at no point during my pregnancy did any medical professional mention the hazards of removing cocaine. During my second trimester, my ex started to apply chemical solids to half of the body's death. He scraped off the loosened gunk, then sanded the residual to reveal the cocaine. 4 days before he was born, I tugged on a loose piece of annoyingly ugly wallpaper, and each time, of course, we see more. It's like decades of the deplorable decorating decisions that happened. Julian arrived on the evening of a blue moon in June. Out of the multitude of forms prepared for my discharge 2 days later, not one page addressed any risks my newborn faced when we were property. Not one. The third failure can only be described as ethically catastrophic. 2 days after my hospital discharge, a nurse visited Julian and I at home. She parked in the driveway, walked up the brick rainbow sidewalk, and passed paint that resembled alligator skin. These two extreme examples live in a different property. She entered through the original oak front doors and couldn't possibly miss the gaps of missing wallpaper, along with the second partially stripped staircase step. Sawhorses and other construction equipment filled a corner of the den. The nurse seemed pleasant enough as she weighed my 4-day-old son at 7 pounds 4 ounces. He heard my eating and asked about my recovery. She packed up her supplies and turned to her vehicle and left without any warnings of dangerous situation in house codes, especially for children. No brochure, no risk assessment, not a single concern on the checklist she had to employer. For Christmas that year, I received a email. It was the last week of January 1997 when I opened the book or told to have and unleashed a monster I didn't even know existed. Roughly 7 weeks into the creation of my own personal Supergirl site, to demonstrate the extreme toxicity captured in this image, I superimposed the results from the Ohio Department of Health Investigations and subsequent independent ICP analysis. While Julian napped upstairs, I sat on those stairs, armed with a heat gun and a chisel. I subsequently burned and scraped the monster day after day, then week after week, with absolutely no protective equipment or containers. After each session, I used a shop vac to clean up the remnants of the old paint that measured 9.1 micrograms per centimeter on the cellar door trim and 9.4 on the stair spindles. Paint that contained 15,800 parts per million of lead. Paint that contained 2,530 micrograms per square foot of lead in dust, the equivalent to 13 crystals of sugar. As a first-time mom, I recorded every one of Julian's milestones in his baby book. He started crawling in January, and by March, he had 5 teeth. Over those 7 weeks, I utilized the heat gun, a strange metallic taste, and simultaneous odor lingered between my mouth and nose, while my headaches and exhaustion increased. Around the Ides of March, I saw my first warning about old removal. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when I read about this 4-letter word and the implications for children. Armed with this information, I made an appointment with the under pediatrician who dismissed my request for a lead screening and told me I was a paranoid new mother who read too much. I refused to leave until he wrote the script. Yet after I left his office, I started to second guess myself and wondered if I was just a paranoid new mother. The lab order remained in my purse while I considered what the doctor advised versus my mother's intuition. Sometime in the early hours of Monday, April 21st, 1997, a horrific nightmare jolted me awake. Julian was at the stage where he was frequently pulling himself standing. He reached for a spindle at the top of the stairs. Only those spindles were temporarily missing. Removed earlier strip of paint. I lunged for him as he slipped towards the end. He was sound asleep in his crib. My subconscious was screaming at me. This was the precise moment my trajectory silently clicked into alignment with a direct impact. History states on January 10, 49 BCE, Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, a river in North Italy, and effectively started a civil war in Rome that had long-range implications for the Roman Empire. 2,043 years, 3 months, and 12 days later, in the midst of Mercury retrograde, and on the eve of a full moon, I drove my son down the old Saints Trace and over the Little Rush Creek to Lancaster, Ohio. Precisely 12:35 p.m. on Monday, April 21st, I crossed my Rubicon, where the phlebotomist punctured Julian's vein and drew his initial blood stream. At the time, I remained unaware that this blood sacrifice for my baby invoked the point of no return. 9 days later, the doctor finally received the results and called. Julian's initial lead level was 44, confirmed on May 7th with a level of 43. My level was 21. The toxicology clinic at Children's Hospital in Columbus prescribed oral accumulation. 111 key medications administered over 26 days, twice. The first 7 days of treatment required 5 capsules daily, then 4 daily for the remaining 19 days. Julian started his first round of chelation at the age of 10 months and 12 days. His second treatment started the day after his first birthday. 4 days later, he walked all by himself. The toxicologist advised me that Julian would be 100% cured. Each visit to the lab escalated when he saw the Terminator. On one of his earliest screens, the phlebotomist poked him with a needle 4 times. It took 3 lab technicians plus myself to hold him still enough before she successfully reached her vein. I had bruises on my legs for a week from him fighting back. As a result, subsequent blood screens sounded like an 8-position torture session with glowing red hot pokers instead of a routine medical procedure. It was until 2003, a full 6 years post-Rubicon, that I learned about EMLA9 cream, which was used for his last 2 lead screens. In total, he endured 16 blood sacrifices, which were followed up by 16 emergency ice cream cones. A term coined by my dad because emergency ice cream makes the nightmare fade away, and that any time is a good time to stop for ice cream. In 2006, I learned about non-invasive oral buccal swabs, which have a higher degree of accuracy over the torture my son endured for 7.5 years. Nearly 20 years later, his humane medicine children has yet to be approved. What symptoms did Julian exhibit? None. After his diagnosis, I noticed a vacant look in his eyes, a blank stare captured in these photos. After his first round of chelation, his lead levels rebounded as predicted. The Ohio Department of Health conducted an environmental investigation on May 5th, 1997. This is a partial list of lead detected inside the property in XRF. The exterior levels directly corresponded to the age of the structure. The original 1832 structure was painted with white lead paint, a formula that changed over the centuries. According to the National Lead Company formula, previously unpainted common brick should receive 3 coats, which meant that the original house was potentially covered with 800 pounds of white lead, 1 pound per square foot. The first edition, completed by 1887, required paint to match the original structure. In total, the entire property potentially was covered with 2,200 pounds, over 1 ton of white lead. By 1905, the kitchen addition required another layer to unify the exterior once again, which added another 1,600 pounds of white lead. With just those 3 paint jobs, the property potentially contained nearly 2 tons of lead. The rear drip line soil sample measured 3,240 parts per million. For perspective, the EPA standard today is 12 pounds. Dust mite analysis of the intact nursery windowsill indicated extremely hazardous levels of lead. That window opened onto a wall that was potentially covered with a half-ton of chalky lead beads. For context, the average sugar crystal weighs around 290 grams. This picture captures some of the paint chips, which 800 parts per million from the Ohio property. As I delicately moved the chips with tweezers, each crumbled into significantly smaller specks around the size of a sugar crystal or smaller. Now, think about that line of dust that doesn't quite make it into the dust can deep, or the dirt on the bottom of your shoes, or the dog bed. If your property or windows were painted with lead at some point over the years, that lead is still there in your dust and soil. Yet one specific stereotype, first introduced exactly 100 years ago, inconceivably remains to this very day, especially amongst the middle class, school administrators, and teachers. Those 5 words. Words which allow the public to distance themselves from any other possibility beyond did he eat peaches? Each syllable drips with belittling conversation, especially the word eat, delivered with a judgmental sleep. Those 18 letters contain the second most frequently implied myth. In that split second before I can even respond, I witnessed the interrogator process the paint implications in their mind. Ew, you're such a bad mom, you let me eat paint chips. You're a terrible mom. Those 5 words are a brutal verbal assault, a proverbial slap in the face judgment intended to break my spirit by shaming and blaming me. And yet, here I am. Due to the complexities of such a high lead level in a young child, the local health department declined to get involved in 1997 and referred Julian's case to the state. The local health department never reached out to me during those first 2 years of health. While I battled with my HMO to cover Julian's medical visits and medication, he was temporarily relocated to live with my family in Pittsburgh. The property went through several phases to get the lead out. Unfortunately, there were no grants or low-interest loans available to abate or to control the houses in the interim So I maxed out credit cards and took a loan out for the replacement. When lead is identified in the property, Title 10 requires disclosure of the hazards to the new owners, which I did. Even in these snippets, you can clearly see young children, permanent neurological damage, and learning disabilities at the top of the property sales disclosure, along with known hazards. Now, on the other hand, when I was disclosed Julian's history of lead poisoning during school registration, not only did the district in Ohio fail to ask, neither did the district in New Jersey after we moved in 2004. Federal law required that I disclose the lead when I sold the property, even though I never applied the toxic paint. Yet, why do we not provide our children with the same protections as in a real estate transaction if the presence of lead is known? One freaking sentence. Has this child ever been medically diagnosed as lead poisoning? Like the risk assessment and affirmative action answer should trigger an intervention along with assessments. Procedures that only happen if school administrators actually know anything about the effects of lead on the developing brain. Failures within the education system are legion, beginning with college education, special education courses and textbooks, to those who only believe the stereotypes since they grew up with and they're okay. At no point from 1997 through 2004 did the state or the local health department ever refer to or advise me about these services. How was I supposed to know? The only agency involved in Julian's case was the Ohio Department of Health, which selected his story for this segment, filmed at the property in February of 1999. That summer, after the video aired and garnered publicity, the local health department threw away the abandoned 2 years ago. They administered the Briggs preschool screen on July 20th, 1999, yet offered no recommendations, nor did they refer him for any special services. Where was the link between the Department of Health and the Department of Education? In 2009, Dr. Vivian Cross developed a survey specifically for parents of lead poisoned children to better understand the obstacles endured after diagnosis. In total, parents from 17 states completed the survey, including myself. The numbers expose massive failures in the system nationwide. Few received any referrals for these services, and none of us, Medicaid or otherwise, received any information about parenting process. Children medically diagnosed with lead poisoning will become students for the next several years of their lives. Why has the Department of Education forsaken the parents of lead poisoning victims? In the book, I refer to the magical letter, missing link between the Department of Health and the Department of Education, which must include the parents of medically diagnosed lead poisoning children. This letter outlines the critical transition between health and education, along with the issues mentioned at the top of the Title 10 property disclosure. Without this connection between health, education, and the parent, children who come with the now disclosed property inspection tumble abandoned into the abyss of the public school system. This magical letter needs to contain information about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, which became effective the same year that the district denied Julian's special education services. IDEA specifically addresses children with lead poisoning under other health impairment. Implementation of an IEP in kindergarten when lead poisoning is disclosed on registration forms potentially ensures a smooth transition. Julian was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder in 3rd grade 7 years, 7 months, and 13 years post-Rubicon. With his combination of ADHD and high IQ today, he would be considered quite exceptional. Yet the Riverside Township School District threatened to abandon his talented and gifted status if I enrolled him in special education. The district offered him a 504 plan to document his ADHD and his medication, yet in return provided him with very few academic accommodations. The lag effects of early lead exposure materialized as children advanced in school. Doctors David Bellinger and Leonard Gruber developed these recommendations for the CDC in 2002. Julian's New Jersey standardized test results clearly demonstrated how his deficiencies escalated between first and seventh grade. Instead of placing him with an IEP, his guidance counselor dumped him into basic remedial classes to conform with no child left behind. When Dr. Herbert Needleman published his landmark study in 1979, he described disturbances of attention in children with a history of elevated lead. Here I paired Needleman's findings with comments made by Julian's sixth grade teachers who perceived him as a smart, lazy student who daydreamed. Julian's levels usually exceeded the parameters of most professional studies. Therefore, it's reasonable to say his lag effects were more pronounced. The near retirement age guidance counselor strongly recommended those that. Dr. James Schneider conducted Julian's first neuropsych assessment in 2007 during sixth grade. The following year, Dr. Theodore Litsky conducted the second assessment, which indicated additional cognitive deterioration. Litsky described his graph on the right as a classic imprint of brain injury. A child with a 130 IQ should not have such substantial deficits under normal conditions. The Riverside Delango Child Study Team refused to accept either report and allowed Julian to fail in order to teach the smart, lazy student who daydreamed hopeless. During the year and a half Julian was in middle school at this point, 21 teachers and administrators interacted with him, yet not a single one proposed an academic intervention to determine why a high IQ student had been pushed to the brink of failing seventh grade. He felt that the administration and teachers were out to get him. When the psychologist callously dismissed Julian's medical history, nearly the entire Riverside Delango Child Study Team nodded in agreement with him. By both 2012 and 2022 blood level standards, Julian's levels remained elevated until May 10, 2001, when he tested at less than 3. A total of 4 years and 20 days, 1/3 of his life by middle school. It was at this meeting that I specifically warned them of my intention to write a book about Julian's experience. They give you notes, or they give you the villains, but either way, they were part of the book. Needless to say, the psychologist underestimated me. Check. Julian's case, Dr. John Rosen, who treated over 30,000 children for lead poisoning during his career. Rosen ultimately delivered a Hail Mary pass into the end zone, no time left on the clock. He advised the child study team about the permanent and irreversible brain damage Julian sustained due to his severe lead poisoning. Rosen's magical letter arrived 11 years 8 months and 15 days post-Rubicon, and would finally unlock Julian's access to special education services. Riverside was in violation of multiple state and federal laws for denying Julian access to IDEA and special services. He was finally classified with an IEP on February 23rd, 2009, exactly 11 years, 10 months, and 2 days post-Rubicon. This chart demonstrates the contrast between 6th grade with a Bible 4, 7th grade after 1 full semester with an IEP, and 8th grade after 3 full semesters with this IEP. The Department of Education must become part of the solution for these innocent victims. ADHD is not going to magically go away, and ultimately the taxpayers foot the bill through annual school tax increases. How many children in the United States potentially will develop such neurological issues? The CDC estimates that approximately 500,000 children between the ages of 1 and 5 have blood levels at above 3.5. That demographic, there's 18.2 million live births that occurred between 2019 and 2023. Out of 18.2 million, 500,000 elevated levels, which makes it 1 in every 36.5 children in the United States. Yet during the fiscal year 2021, only 21.2% of Ohio's Medicaid eligible children aged 5 and under received a lead screen. Child lead poisoning is not going to be eradicated by only addressing high-risk zip codes, as the Wanabana cinnamon applicator recall really demonstrated last year. In the meantime, special education rates are skyrocketing across America. The system is broken, and yet, with a few adjustments, eradicating childhood lead poisoning for future generations would be a reality. Ohio law requires newborn screening blood tests, even if the baby looks healthy, to identify more than 40 rare genetic hormone-related or metabolic disorders, which, if not found early, a child could develop serious health problems. After I sorted the list, these were the 5 most frequently identified conditions. In particular, PKU is found in about 275 U.S. infants per year. Overall, PKU affects 1 in every 10 to 15,000 individuals. As you can see, non-identification of PKU, an amino acid disorder, mirrors symptoms of unidentified chromosome in children. Adding lead to the newborn screening panel would identify this preventable neurotoxin by the time the nurse visits the newborn home environment. Identification at birth provides the pediatrician with a baseline to follow up on prevention. Simply stated, had the laboratory screened Julian or analyzed the placenta before the hospital discharge, the results would have indicated both lead and cadmium crossed the umbilical cord. Instead, cadmium and carcinogen was also found in the feed chip analysis. Knowledge of those results would have spurred me to conduct additional research about lead and would probably result in either reselling the house or declaring bankruptcy before these schools. The current cost for newborn screening in Ohio is $74.61 per kit. Incorporate filter paper on the newborn panel as a genetic condition from the mother. Screen all newborns, not just Medicaid eligible. This is an investment in America's future. Lead prevention needs to begin at conception. Pregnant women attend multiple appointments at the bodies until the baby arrives. Give her the option to get a bloodstream for lead where she lives in Lower Poverty. Incorporate materials about other sources of lead. A hot topic on LeadNet last week. Back when I went on Lady Gaga on y'all, I incorporated multiple toxic items as props and costume accessories to demonstrate the range of lead in products. Forget the 6 degrees of bacon. I've been at 2 degrees of lead. This journey down the road less traveled started on that spring April afternoon, and along the way, I saved the receipts. My great-great-great-great-grandfather, Colonel Leann Howell, enlisted in the Pennsylvania militia, who saved me of the Declaration of Independence we signed, fighting against oppression, literally loves my genes. Simply stated, lead is the pill I will die on. This vicious cycle of identifying and abandoning the victims of lead poisoning must end now. We're becoming unleaded due to lead with Silent Spring to DDT and environmental awareness. Thank you.
Leann, do you want to take questions before your co-presenter comes up, or do you want to do them together at the end? Okay, go ahead. Questions for Leann? Questions, comments, thoughts?
I was just curious how your son's doing now.
Once we got the IUD put in place, things went a lot smoother. But until then, it was an agony. There's no reason parents should have to go through this at all. But each one of us seems to be driving down this path each time. But yeah, he's doing much better. He's graduated from college, and I'm super proud of him.
Hi, my name is Julian. I'm from Syracuse, where I actually represent an organization called Families for Lead Freedom Act. So a group of affected families. And I cannot applaud you enough for speaking out with your son, sharing your story, and bringing our fight to the public every day. This is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments, thoughts, questions?
And I just want to thank you. You've been doing this for a long time, and I appreciate it. You're going to be in this, so thank you so much.
Anything else? Let's have another round of applause for Leann. Go. That's you to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell your story. And you don't need to actually wait for her to finish.